The angels that sin, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be with death unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, raining the flood upon the world of the ungodly, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemn them with an overthrow.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in Genesis chapter 5, really ending 5 with just the birth of Noah. We're taking that into Genesis 6. So let's read. We're actually going to pick it up at chapter 5 verse. We're going to just read, because we're not going to read through all those genealogies again. We talked about all we're going to talk about with that. So let's start with Genesis 5:27. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, that they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man, and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupted before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. This is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make into the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof. With lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee I will establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing, of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark, to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, two of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all the food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. Shows I didn't have my entire text in there yet. Well, for chapter 7 yet. Okay, so we begin with all right, he hasn't done the ark yet. So we haven't come to the actual flood, just the building thereof. So we're in the preliminaries. First, let's see. Noah. I forget what the name Noah means, but it generally can be determined. They'll say something. They called his name Noah because we shall be comforted in these days because of him. And so, let's see. And Noah means rest. So there we go. That's an interesting thought, because part of what Christ promises us is rest. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Noah is called in 2 Peter, which I played at the beginning. That's from the video you can see on my other channel, 2 Peter chapter 2. That's just the audio from the video. I think that's the only place to get the audio. That's where I just got the audio, so I don't have it in my normal album places. I don't have a regular audio file of that. Not ready. He was a preacher of righteousness, according to Peter. And also, the idea that he walked with God sort of implies that. Because, the most important way we preach is the way we live our lives. I've said this often in the past, that I would be ashamed I am ashamed if there's anybody who would be surprised to find that, who is familiar with me and they were surprised, oh, you're a Christian. How shocking and surprising. That would be a shame to me. Now, it wasn't a shame to me when I was 19, because I was a new Christian and people were kind of shocked at it. But I'm saying that, people who are in my life now, if they were like, I never would have guessed you're a believer in Jesus Christ, I wouldn't want that to be the case. Our greatest testimony is the way we live our lives. We can say a lot of things. We can preach a lot of things. It is good to preach the truth. But, when the degree to which we live out that truth is going to grant us credibility in the eyes of people listening to us. So if we're preaching something we aren't ourselves following, we can't be angry with people or disappointed if they don't take us very seriously. That's an important part, because that's part of it. So you got to live it to be able to be an effective preacher. And we see this optimism in Noah's father towards Noah. This same shall comfort us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. He names him, hopefully. Everyone, we didn't go through the meaning of all the names. I used to do stuff like that. Sometimes they're significant. Jared means like something like dividing or something like that. If they don't all have the same, not every name meaning. Sometimes the name is just a name. I wasn't named Paul because I'm small or something, or because I was a small baby. I wasn't. I was a very large baby. I was almost 10 pounds. I was at birth. So that's a big baby. They didn't name me Paul. I was named after the Apostle Paul. It has nothing to do with the meaning of the word. I think there's a mug here that says Paul. Well, it says meaning humble, but it really means small. They're just trying to be kind to us. Maybe it does mean humble. I don't know. Well, because the idea of humility comes with the idea of seeing yourself as small, as greatness, right? And we're about to talk about the great men, the giants. There are giants out there. Giants to contend with. What shall we say of giants? Okay. So Lamech has this optimism about his son to bring comfort. So he names him Rest, because of the toil brought about because of having to till the ground, and the fact that the earth is cursed. It could be a lot easier. Or, in a sense, here's the thing about that, what's interesting to me. Like, we produce a lot of food for the people, don't we? Like, I go out and garden, and the works of my hands seem blessed. There's all kinds of parables of vineyards and stuff and growing things. They shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. But only early in the Bible is this whole thing about the earth being cursed, as far as the ground being cursed, and no more yielding to us its strength, the idea. Okay? That aspect is a very interesting aspect, right? Well, because we do get yields. I mean, did this get released after the flood, so to speak? Because, when I get down to it, in my mind, the flood, I already told you what I think about the chronology. So it's like the best time geologically for a flood would be a period that they think was like 12,000 years ago. And that's where I would look for it. But, because the point is, after that period, we have settlements and, like I said, things from like 9,000 years, that sort of fit into this. And they weren't practicing farming. At least we don't think they were. That's the thing. They haven't found the evidence of it. I just think that perhaps it wasn't widespread immediately. And also, it may be something people shied away from because of the difficulty. And they knew it was hard. Because it wasn't, like I said, there's thorns and thistles. It's not easy to get food out of the ground, to tame it for yourself. It does take a bit of work. And when I think about this, the way it's sort of the obsession of the antediluvian fathers, right? It's they're always upset about this. Like right down to the days of Methuselah. Oh, the ground is so cursed. You know what I mean? All right. And my thought on that is just like I say about people with no arms and legs. They remember this idyllic garden. They had this tale from Adam about how easy they'd had it, right? And they lost it, and they felt that loss. And I just think now we're so far from that, and we've compensated for this curse, and we've lived under it so long we barely even notice it's there. Just like it's like, cursed shalt thou be, on your belly you will go. It's like a real snake doesn't actually sweat that at all. It's designed to go on its belly. Satan isn't precisely designed to go on his belly. That's just his destiny. He's designed to be beautiful and wise. Not wiser than Daniel. So he has this optimism, but they're still hung up on this cursed ground thing. Doesn't that sort of get to you a little bit? Like, you think about it. I plant a garden every year, and it is hard work, but I don't think of the ground as cursed. I sort of just deal with it. And yeah, it does bring forth weeds, and it's a real pain. Like keeping the garden, it's a lot of work. And God said, yeah, now you're going to work because you know good and evil and because you've partaken of this. I accept the consequences, and we've learned to deal with them. It is hard. But I don't think the work itself is the punishment. Except, well, yeah, like because man was originally set to keep the garden. So that he was supposed to work. But he had this sort of very cooperative environment. The environment was going to be cooperative with him in the garden. Whereas now we have to work hard to tame the environment. And I say, in the antediluvian fathers, it is a great concern of theirs. And, we are not so concerned about it now. I guess when you had it easy, and you lose it, you never quite forget, just like the Hebrews coming out of Egypt. Oh, Egypt. Oh, where we had the leeks and the onions. Oh, it was so wonderful in Egypt. Oh, in the wilderness, all we have is this manna. Oh, who will comfort us in this austere and dire straits we find ourselves in? God is leading us. So, I guess, I don't mean to be rude to the patriarch Lamech, but I do, I'm just reading it from, this is my take on it, okay? And I'm not saying it's bad or good. I'm just saying that's what he said. And it's interesting to me because I get it. We could have it a lot easier, but I guess, just through, being a lifelong Christian and accepting the curse and the nature of sin and all that stuff, I guess to me, I just look at it now and I say, well, that's what we have. That does not, the Lord has comforted me concerning these things. I'm not still yet looking. I guess that's the truth, is that in Hebrews it says, they were all looking for something. They sought a country. Abraham was out looking for something. They were a child, some child that would come, the seed, the promised seed that would crush the head of the serpent. In a place called Karahan Tepe in Turkey. And Turkey is interesting because that's where the ark is supposed to have come to rest, right? Well, in Turkey they find these very ancient, like about the time of the cataclysm of 12,000 years ago, supposedly. The dates could be wrong. I'm not a geologist, but I'm saying that's what they give us as far as in that realm of knowledge. You just have to separate the realms of knowledge. Understand, it's not undermining anything, except we have an undermined understanding already. We have to rely upon God first and foremost. That's what I see throughout all times, is that people want to lean on their own understanding. It's far harder to walk out on the sea with no, Bible along with a helpful verse that says it's okay. To actually just walk out on the sea with Jesus, with his ghostly figure out there, is not as easy as it might think. Well, it's just as difficult as you might imagine, because I do imagine that is quite difficult, just mentally. I've never claimed to be a man of exceedingly grand and great faith. What I have, I make the most of it. I've always done that with all my gifts. But I bring that up, the time frame and all that. Noah, the Karahan Tepe, the reason I brought it up is there's this really creepy serpent figure. I remember the geologist, the archaeologist looking, was like, this is just amazing. I remember he was just he didn't know what to say. It was really far out stuff. They're digging up there. There's this like serpent along the thing, and there's this chamber with these, they said they were phallic looking things, and very typical paganism. Serpent and then these tree trunk like structures, which are very much like the thing. That's part of the problem, is that there is so much innuendo associated with that, right? But you gotta understand, the sexual innuendo occurs because ultimately we are the bride of Christ. We are his betrothed. And our worship towards God in the Bible is like, a marriage. And when we put it towards other things, it's likened to adultery. But that's a spiritual construction. It's not actually literal. I'm just going to switch the screen here quickly so I can fix that fan. I may do that throughout. I'm just not going to comment. I'm just going to switch it over. So, yes, a lot of times we're talking about the serpent in the garden and the eating the tree and the knowledge and good and evil. You can read a lot of sexual innuendo into that. And, of course, all those things flow from it. There is a whole component of evil that does have that, intrusive sexual component, the unholy aspect of that. And it goes down, but it goes down ultimately, the flesh is a model of something that goes deeper into the spirit, into the realm of infidelity, unfaithfulness. That's what all the adultery is really about, unfaithfulness. I'm just getting my camera messed up a little. It is being unfaithful. Adultery and idolatry are a form of unfaithfulness. And that's why, yes, there is that aspect to all of this, to the serpent, to his seduction, and all that. Because, as Paul said, it is like, I want to espouse you to one husband as a chaste virgin to Christ. But he's speaking, of course, spiritually. And to intrude all that other in as an unnecessary level, I think, of carnality, or focus to carnality. Because there's nothing born of the flesh that cannot be healed by God's Spirit. Even the people I know who are the proponents of a literal serpent seed, like Arnold Murray, even he says, if a Kenite, a son of Satan, turns from his wicked, if he turns, well, then he's not a Kenite anymore, and he so of course he even yields to them. So they are not categorically by their birth excluded. They can now he sees it as through free will and all that stuff, and that's fine. I'm not interested in making a dispute over that. My point is just that, okay, well then, so someone's status really doesn't matter ultimately, because we got to take heed lest we fall. I don't expect any of us to truly fall, but there are those who aren't taking heed, who aren't of us, who are going to fall just to fulfill that. They're going to have been right there, like almost to salvation, right in range of it. Like a lot of things, I there are times when I've been out and I don't make this mistake. I don't make these mistakes actually at this age. But when I was young, I go out and I'd get a flat tire and I wouldn't have some tool I need. I regret it, or wouldn't be dressed properly for the weather. You plan ahead when you know what's coming. Okay, so, but that Karahantepe idol is what I call it. It's a man with a man's head on a serpent's body, and I don't know. It was in that HBO series. They showed it. And I thought the host got a good. I too got an evil vibe off of it, which he thought it was evil, and I definitely felt so too. There's something about it. All right, you just kind of know. And it's the serpent. Why would the serpent? Yeah, people think that there's always not evil. We're just kind of using. No, it is an image of evil. What else does a serpent represent? It is a serpent. A big enough one will eat your baby if you leave it laying around in the jungle. They're not nice. They're predatory creatures that slink around. That's what Satan's like. Okay. Now this gets into this interesting stuff in Genesis 6, right? Where we have, first of all, just before the flood, the pre-flood, the last information we about have a pre-flood period. We may finish out this whole day on just these few verses, and that would please me just fine. Because there's so much to think about here. It's very interesting, right? Men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born into them. Okay, that happened immediately, I assume, not later. So, but why is this from, okay, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, the daughters of Adam in Hebrew, the sons of Elohim, the word for God, generally used, right? Sons of Elohim, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Interesting. Okay, and then he says, my spirit will not strive, and he makes this statement. Okay. Prior to this, just these two verses, what about this? Now, a lot of times this is associated, because there's let's skip the parenthesis of God. Well, we're not going to delve into what God's saying here right now, because we're looking at the other part. But there were giants in the earth in those days. That word giants I believe that is Nephilim, right? Just going to check that real quick. Now, giants does not mean like great, large things, but it does indicate it is a word understood to refer to giants. Okay. Meaning like it isn't elsewhere used like as a descriptor of big stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't at its essence mean something big. Actually, Nephilim indicates the idea of fallen ones. And like if you ever read Tolkien, he uses the term like fell beasts. They're fell. The idea is that it carries with it an implication of greatness, of largeness, of fierceness in the fallen nature. I mean, they had fallen all the way to the bottom, so to speak. Like the way Satan fell so far as to be considered a dragon. Something that dwells deep in the depths of the bottomless pits of the sea, so to speak. The abysses of the sea. Right? The dragon that is in the sea. That is where he has fallen to. And the idea of Nephilim as fallen ones, I've always taken that a little bit like that origin. That's where we get the idea partially that this is referring to fallen angels, I assume. That's what my assumption is. Not only that, of course, the reference to the sons of God. Now, sons of God is a term used in the Old Testament almost exclusively of what we would consider to be angelic beings, almost exclusively. And there are some passages where I suppose it's a little arguably, and I forgot exactly where that is because this is something I used to think about a lot, and I looked it all up because I thought this was where it was at as far as what God could reveal to me about reality, about life, about how I wanted to know what are the secrets of the universe, and I thought this is it. This is it. There were angels that came down and they had children with women. That's the story that if you read it one way. And it's a very compelling textual case to be made. And also there are outside sources that have interpreted it that way since ancient times. This is not a new theory. So I want to look at giants and just confirm that is. I realized why I was having trouble finding it. We're not in Genesis 6 and I was still talking. There were giants in the earth in those days. Okay. Yeah, Nephil. Giants, and it says in quote. I'll bring up the definition for you from Strong's, and we'll just because it's like a lot of things like spirit and a lot of or Raphaim. We know more about them from the usage of the word than we do from the concordance, I would say, or from some sort of study of the etymology of the word. I think I'm getting far from my mic here. Okay. Nephilim, or Nephil. This is Nephilim. Nephilim is definitely wrong, by the way, but we say it that way often. My old mentor said Nephilium, which it doesn't have a U there. Nephilium. Probably Nephilium. Or whatever. I don't know. I want to diphthong that I, right? Everyone wants to put two sounds there. It's im. Nephil im. Probably is closer to the right way to say it. From Nephal. Name of two peoples, one before the flood and after the flood. Well, two peoples. Oh, kinds of peoples. Okay. The before and after the flood is the also after that part, I suppose. Because that is how that is read, right? And here's all the uses of them in Genesis 6 and also Numbers 13. We also see Nephilim, the sons of Anak. And again, we see in Numbers 13 again, which come of the giants. And again in the international when they just transliterate it because they don't know what it means. The Nephilim. Now I often wonder when they say giants. You know why? It's because when they describe them, they're described as giant. Like for example, Numbers 13. The sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and were in our own sight, as grasshoppers, I think is what they said. Something like that, right? Numbers 13:33. Let's see, I'm going to have to, what's the last word? Yeah, like grasshoppers, that's what it is. So we were in their sight. They were described as being giant. That's part of how we get that idea that it means giants. Now, the meaning of the word isn't giants. The meaning of the words is, like it says, it comes from the root. Properly, a feller. Oh, a feller. I was not following it. Well, like I said, like a fell beast. Like a creature that is dangerous. I never saw this. That's right from Strong's. Nephil. From Nephal. Properly a feller. One who makes falls, I guess. A bully or tyrant, a giant. The Nephilim. There you go. I say like fell beast. It's not like, like we want to think of in terms of falling angels from the sky. And we have that, because that's the thing is we have that imagery of the stars falling, right? His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and did cast them the earth. And I play that passage from 2 Peter chapter 2 about God spared not the angels that sinned but cast them down to hell. So that begs the question, are these sons of God those angels that sinned? Are these sons of God's angels? I don't know. It creates difficulties if they are. It creates difficulties if they are not. You have to sort out the difficulties no matter which way you turn. Now, on one hand, I'm going to look at it both ways, though. Because there's a way I like it. If we look at the sons of the Nephilim as perhaps, the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Now, people have said that this is the one theory I do not really buy into is that, this is the godly line of Adam, of Seth marrying into the ungodly line of Cain. Then why would the daughters is the daughters of Adam are the daughters of Cain, and then the sons of God are the children of Seth? Is that the idea? Because what it says is that the whole earth was corrupted. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single person, by the way, but it would mean a general corruption, because only Noah and his family. It wasn't Noah, his extended family. Wherever Noah was, depending on if you look at the flood as a fully global flood. I do think the events of the flood were global in nature, by the way. Yes. And when we read it, though, we're going to read it and talk about it. We haven't gotten to chapter 7 yet, so I do not want to get too far ahead of myself on that. So let's stick with this. And so they see the daughters of men. That is Adam. Sons of God. So I have trouble finding the idea that Cain would be the sons of God. They would be referred as the sons of God. I mean, like I said, it's not that the Lamech, not Noah's father, but the Lamech, who is Cain's descendant, his, talk about the killing the guy. Okay, that puts him in a negative light. But was Tubal-Cain being an artificer? Is this bad? Or does that say something bad about him? He was a craftsman. Men began to call on the name of the Lord earlier in that period. I'm not sure what that means. But men might have gone to God to look for gifts, and he may have given them. But then the gifts become corrupted because of man being corrupt. I don't know. They discover the gifts that God had already given them. And every child is like a new gift because they come into the world and they see the world in a new light and can build upon what the former fathers built. I mean, that's what we have today. We built upon the foundations of others. But the idea here could be that, I don't know, so sons of God, I find it hard identifying that as anyone except some sort of either angels, or that would have to be the men who did live for God. They saw women, that they were fair. They were good looking. This is something, there's something about this, about the women being beautiful. And they took them wives of all which they chose. And I think, apart from this parenthesis in verse 3, the consequence is the Nephilim. So hold on a second. Well, you can get the Nephilim are the consequence of this, whoever the sons of God are. Because I'm trying to take this as a mystery, as revealed, without a lot of, trying not to take too much of what I already know, other than what the scriptures say. Like I said, the inclination here is, if these aren't actual angels, we're talking about, then these have to be the men referred to in Psalm 82. I have said you are Elohim, all of you are children of the Most High, but you shall, the sons of God. Because that's why I said almost all the Old Testament passages, if you search the phrase sons of God in the Old Testament, that phrase, you will find that most of that the context will guide you to the thought that these are angels. Or when it's a son of God, or one like unto the Son of God, there's always like that angelic thing, and it's the image of God as a man. Meaning some creature, some messenger in the image of a man is what a son of God is. And the Son of God, Christ, is that image of a man, of God as a man. Or become flesh, I should say. But he also, because we are made in his image, he bears also the image of a man. Because that is his image. That's what we bear. And, people say, well, like the creature. The creatures are patterned after God, not the other way around. So where's our text? Okay, so we have that parenthesis. And so what I'm saying is like this, they chose the wife. To me, you could think of this as, yes, breeding. They chose beautiful wives and they favored their sons and they became great men. Mighty men, renowned men. But not virtuous men. And I wonder, just like taking angels out of the picture for a bit, how often do we notice that the great men don't have great children? You know what I mean? Oftentimes men rise up. I have said you are gods. But you shall die like men. Like I said, Psalm 80. I'm talking about the men of Psalm 82. If we look at it like that, what he's referring to there. I have said you are gods. In fact, I've even run into this interpretation about the angels that sinned, as they consider that to be, they were suggesting that was, I believe, Dathan and Achan. I forgot the exact way to say his name. The one who troubled Israel. Oh, the gainsaying of Korah. Sorry, not Achan. That's a different one. But the gainsaying of Korah and Dathan, that they were the angels that sinned. Because they got swallowed up into the earth, in a remarkable way. And I don't really think that's what he's referring to. Because obviously, interestingly, in 2 Peter, it's connected very closely to the flood, right? That's something that it's hard to walk away from that in my book. And so it's connected to this in one way or the other. It doesn't have to be angels, but it says angels there. Now, an angel is just a messenger. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. But the Old Testament doesn't call him an angel. And so when Peter does that, do you think he's using the term angel in some special way? Or is he using it as we would expect, which usually means a messenger from God? And the idea that beings of the class that God uses as messengers, let's put it like that, right? Beings of the class that God uses as messengers, who are not human beings, but they are made spirits. They have forms and things. There's a lot about angels we don't understand. But he maketh his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire. But again, does that mean a minister is a flame of fire literally, and an angel is literally only a spirit? Do they not have bodies? Can they do something like this? Because some people would say, well, because it says the angels, according to Jesus, right, do not marry nor are given in marriage. At least they're not supposed to, we suppose, right? Now, we know through this modern age that things like things that would appear to be miracles, meaning requiring almost magic, can be accomplished in the material world. Things like virgin pregnancies are not so miraculous that we couldn't comprehend how it could happen. I mean, we know how someone could be pregnant without having ever lost their virginity. And so we also now have the phenomenon where they say men can give birth. Right? Because they're talking about women who have decided internally that they're men, or maybe not yet. They just don't realize it. Who knows? Right? Do angels need to penetrate, to be quite blunt, to create children, to make wives, if they were to do something of this nature? Well, I would say no, not necessarily so. We know there are ways that nature can be corrupted or circumvented, let's say. Like, for example, like test tube babies. That's been around for a long time. And I used to think like, well, maybe the angels came down and made test tube babies and they became these giants, the fallen ones, the fell, who were actually giant people. Or metaphorically giant. That's another thing. It's like, I don't know. I like to think of them as metaphorical giants, but in numbers, it seems that they're talking about, or they at least believe they were talking about giants. Though it may have been just they were intimidated by them. Like, they're not saying we were literally grasshoppers in their sight. They were saying we felt like grasshoppers in their sight. They were intimidated by them. They seemed big and scary. Maybe they just had big, tall helmets on. I don't know. Numbers 13. Joshua and Caleb, I'm more on their side. Their report was, it's a good land. Let's go in and take it. Giants. I saw a couple guys. They were like maybe 6'5", 10 of them maybe. That's the contingent they sent out to negotiate. Because there weren't a whole lot of giants at Jericho, I'll tell you that. There were a lot of giants there were some battles where there were actual giants. But also there are the metaphorical giants, right? And that's often, because here's the thing, in many ancient accounts and mythologies, there are giants in the past. There were ancient giants. Now, to the degree of how, now we know there's actual examples of gigantism even to this day. So that's not in dispute that we could have a 9-foot tall human being. That's happened. Nobody really, and even they did in ancient times breed extremely large soldiers. There was that because they didn't have ethics and stuff, and they understood how this stuff worked. They understood how to breed animals, and they understood how to breed men. And I'm suggesting that could have also been the project here. That by being sons of God, just like men began to call upon the name of the Lord, it's interesting that we take a negative connotation from that. What if we take a negative connotation from this? That this is assessment of themselves. We having, this is what happens when you fall like Satan. I'm going to take a whole new tack on this just for fun because, like I said, I want to explore this unfettered. Satan, in his fall, what he said, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High. And what if there are men? They begin to accrue to themselves knowledge. You know who the sons of God are? They're the people all sitting at the World Economic Forum. I have said you are gods. All of you are children of the Most High. We all have that. They see themselves especially that, though. That's why the sons of God, the sons of men who had become over other men, who had become like gods among men. That's what happened in the antediluvian period. They had gods, not men anymore, Men who were of old, men of renown, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. Now after that, Bullinger supposes this is after the flood, and that's why you see them in Numbers 13. That there is this sons of God intermingling with the daughters of men. Because the thing is, women, why is it just the daughters of men? Because all women are pretty much equal in the sight of all men. As far as this, meaning your only value is how fair you are. That's all you matter as far as when it comes to this. And the God is not happy with this. His spirit does not strive. He's not always going to because he's flesh. Man is flesh and looks at things from a fleshly perspective. My spirit shall not always strive with man. We haven't commented on that. What does he mean by strive? To judge. Let's look a little deeper at that because that doesn't. It's din, the word in Hebrew din, or deen. Usually the I is pronounced E, by the way. Yeah. To judge. How you deem it. Oh, okay, that's wrong. All right, New American Standard Bible. Administer, defend, dispute. I wonder how they translated Genesis and these other trans. Everyone chose strive. Look at that on the right-hand side. Hebrew, New American Standard, and the King James. Not the Hebrew. The New American Standard, the King James, and the INT, whatever that is. What is that? The Biblos Interlinear Bible. Probably, New American Standard is probably chosen because it is considered a pretty, like it's not like the NIV. It's trying to be a modern, better than King James, you know. My spirit shall not strive with man. Let's see what the NAS says there. I'm curious what they say on that one. Okay. My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is flesh. So I think what he's saying is like he sees this phenomenon of men becoming great. Probably because of their long lives also. There being the great ones coming. Taking wives to themselves. Right? Building up their empires. And he decides, I'm going to limit man's age. So that because this one, I don't need to, I think ultimately God didn't, of course the tree of the knowledge of evil brings death. But God didn't want man to die right away, but he wants man to live for a while. And I say decide, at least in the story, this is where he decides. Or the point where it's declared, I should say. Because all things are from the beginning decided, as far as I'm concerned. That's how I understand it. That's how I've been given it. Is it was all decided. But this is his pronouncement upon this is what, man goes out and does this. And then God says, my spirit shall not, with man forever. It's part of the thing I said about God's patience. And about patience in general. You got to have a payoff. It's no good to be patient forever. Even God does not wait forever and count on it. Though it tarry long, it will come. It's in the tarrying that men fall away. Why do you think it's all precipitously in our generation? The falling away is quite stark in our country. Don't be deceived, though. Overall, in the world, Christianity is still growing. I don't consider this quite yet the great falling away we look for. But, I could be wrong on that one, that's for sure. Because I have friends who would say, with the falling away, that's already happened. I get it. I just think there's another level to which they could fall. Where there becomes no doubt. I do believe that, part of, like Pharaoh's heart had to be hardened and the fullness of the judgment had to be brought about. The same thing I see in Revelation, that ultimately people have to be hardened against the truth. Their fullness of their transgression has to be brought to the full. This doesn't happen subtly. It's going to happen. It's going to be as bad as it sounds. God is not striving with man forever. Even so, he gives us 120 years. That would be the future seemingly sealing on our age after the deluge. Because men's lives who were born after the deluge are shortened. Though it's been pointed out that Seth would have lived very long, even to the death of Abraham. At least according to what we read here, right? And assuming there's no generations. Actually, there in chapter 11, there is a missing person from one manuscript to the next. We'll talk about that when we get to it. So again, there's issues with the genealogies. Okay, so we could have angels coming down, producing giants, anomalies, these strange creatures born of angels and men somehow. Probably not through normal intercourse, but through some sort of abominable science, basically, is all I could call it. Because that's what I would think. That's what I always have thought. That would be, because I do not think of the angels as capable of reproduction. They don't do that. They don't have that. And the idea that they see them as fair, really, here's the problem is like, no, it says the angels that sin, right? It's amazing even thought the angels could sin. You think it would be out of bounds, but Satan, right? But Satan. But not all angels do. Like I said, the angels that sinned, part of what I believe is that it is in them. And they were created for that very purpose. That's why we have evil spirits. God allows the existence of evil spirits. They almost, I don't know, it's such a weird thing. The realm of ideas, the knowledge of good and evil. The knowledge of good and evil is almost like our brain is tuned into a level of knowledge and understanding that includes things that go into the realm of wicked things, things that are morally evil. Not just, like I said, not just the calamity of nature, but of godlike decision making, where we choose things but that are not for good, or that for at least in the sight of God, because He is the judge. He's not always going to put up with this forever and ever. Anyways, so while I do, and I have a long history with that idea of the sons of God being angels, and there's very strong scriptural support for it, I still say we can look at this other ways too, and in some ways it makes more sense to me, at least to me. At least because of they see the fair women, take them of all which they choose. There's a sort of a tyrannical thing. And the idea of giants in the earth, again, these are tyrannical, powerful, gigantic men. Men which were of old, men of renown. They came, the sons of God took all the women they thought best. You know what I mean? The strongest, the best looking, whatever, the smartest, whatever. You could realize you could do this. And breed up the most strong, resilient children. It's something I kind of thought about when I was going about looking for a wife. I did. I remember I wanted a tall woman, I did. I hoped for someone kind of tall. Didn't have to be crazy tall, but I didn't want to marry someone 5 feet tall. Sorry to 5 feet tall ladies, But there's lots of guys who are shorter. I thought about big children, breeding tall children, giant children, not giants, but you know what I'm saying? Like, and in this pursuit of building your house, there's always the danger of building it like Satan does into the house where I am God. And in many ways, it's like that. As a father, I am like God among my children and my wife. I am the head of the house. I am to love my wife as Christ loved the church. That puts me in I have an obligation on some level to comport to that degree of loving, of righteous loving behaviors. The Christ who even laid his life down, right? So that is a very godly perspective on things. I'm supposed to take that up. And men took up a lot of godly things, quote unquote, with the knowledge of good and evil. But they became corrupt into false images, false gods, powers in stuff that were corrupted. Now, no doubt, and the thing is, these sons of God also, because of Satan's influence in the world, is it not also through the influence of evil angels? So, the carnal reality on the ground might be human beings mating with human beings and the sons of God. Because else, what about after that? How did it happen after the flood? If the flood was just to destroy these angels who had come or something like that, I don't get it. Because that was one of the things Arnold Murray used to say was the purpose of the flood was to destroy the fallen angels, right? Or the offspring of the fallen angels, right? But they were there after the flood also. And it suggests that there was a second eruption of fallen angels. Well, what I would say about that one thing is if that happens, it's not like God's compensating, the angels are getting out of control. It would have been part of the plan. But I'm much more in love with the idea of a spiritual thing. That Satan's presence in the world, as it has been since ancient times, he has a certain spiritual presence in the world. He exercises his influence on us just as he did in the garden. And through also his minions, the angels that sinned and were reserved unto chains of darkness, unto judgment. You know, I mean, like as far as there is, you know, Satan is portrayed in the book of Revelation as going to the bottomless pit with a key and opening it up and getting those angels out. You know what I mean? They're bound in some way. The evil spirits are here in the world, yes. I mean, this is what I believe. But the angels themselves are bound. Satan is here in the world through his spirit, yes. But he is bound in some way. He who now restrains will restrain till he be taken out of the way. And that ain't the rapture, buddies. Because Noah lived through all this. The ark was the point, you know, that's where the ark is only good for saving you from the wrath of God. As far as having to deal with the men who think they're the sons of God, or having to deal with the men who think they're, you know, their sons are going to be the sons of God or whatever. I mean, because there's a lot of this where they want to combine themselves with machines, right? They want to become post-human. They think they're going to achieve immortality. They think they're going to batter their way into the tree of life. Well, I tell you what, I've still got that sword, and it says no. It says no. Sword says no. And so I'm not particularly worried about them getting past it, to tell you the truth. But that's what they want. They think they're ascending. They think they're on their way up, just like Satan. We are the sons of God, and they will bear evil children. Because they will raise them to be that way. You know, they will corrupt them. Now, they don't have to follow in the ways of their fathers. Men of renown. Is anything special about that word? You know, like renowned for a lot of reasons. Like Genghis Khan or Genghis Khan, if you want to say it properly, I guess, is one of the most renowned figures in history. Not for good. You know, carving a path of rape and destruction across the world like no one had ever seen in history. Not that he didn't have good things he did too, you know. It's always funny when people talk about, you know, if we were talking about the bad things that, like, you know, Italians have done, let's just keep it real tight. Well, they've done some good things too, right? All that stuff is just, you know, whatever. Stop thinking in group terms. You know, I look at this as like the sons of God. It's not the godly line of Cain and that. It's all the ungodly men, because they're all of Adam and Eve. Because Eve came of Adam. And anything else getting added into there or messed around with by angels or whatever, genetic manipulation, is just playing around with the same thing God created from the beginning. Like, I don't ascribe to Satan the power to create new seed. He doesn't have that power that I know of. His seed is spiritual. He does not give and take in marriage as men and women do. But as I have married godly to bring forth godly children, the wicked can marry ungodly to bring forth wicked children. And they often do. You know, people seek out people like themselves. I mean, I remember when you see some of these people who are weird and sexually corrupted and they're trying to teach children, what do you think their family life was like? What do you think they grew up in? What do you think they got instructed in? What dark secrets of the knowledge of good and evil have been placed into their minds? What have they been through? And you know, so there's a lot of ways in which the evil angels and the evil spirits under the command of Satan, or under, you know, that have been given to him and under his authority, and as under the earth, the rulership of the earth, in so much as it is, I would say to whatever degree, in any near term, God deems it acceptable, it is given unto Satan to give the kingdoms of the world to whoever he pleases. I mean, that's something that I would say, unless God has some overriding interest, you know what I mean, where he wants something else, he's given it under Satan's will. Now, that's part of God's plan, by the way. It's not like he's going to get some random result. Satan is the one who's always annoyed that everything he does to frustrate God's plan just plays right into it. See, that's where it goes. God is not always trying to, oh, the devil, I got to compensate. No, Satan's always doing things and being like, foiled again. That's more of the actual result. But that's how you have the perspective we must take, because the Lord is not being made a fool of. But this is the unfolding of what he has brought into being. Men of renown. I didn't actually look that word up yet. Men of renown, there it is. But it's not on your screen. Let me scroll it down a little bit. There we go. Why is it still not? Oh, there we go. Shem. Huh, interesting. I wonder if that's the root from which we get the name Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It means the name. In fact, the name of the first is Pishon. Oh, but they were men of name, of course. It means to name. To have a name. Name and fame. You know, right? Like when God has given Christ a name which is above every name. Doesn't mean that the name Jesus or the sound of the name or the syllables or whatever. There's something about that. It's what that name represents, the person that represents, and the glory that goes with it. His name is above every name. And it may not have been manifest in the mind of everyone yet, but every knee shall bow to him. Every tongue shall confess the name of Jesus. And so these were men of name also, who got famous names in the prior to the deluge. Their names are all forgotten now, for the most part, except for the men of Noah's life. Well, they're not entirely forgotten. Like I said, there's interesting, like when you look at some of the ancient megalithic structures built, like I said, a lot of the oldest ones are the most complicated ones, repeatedly built by giants or often by heroic figures that traveled, that had come from a cataclysm, that had come to reveal the knowledge or something like that. There's a lot of legends and such of such things, of giants, of men of renown who are passing on this great knowledge. You think of like Tubal-Cain and his knowledge of every artificer and this and that. I think this is also similar. It's men organizing, but organizing after a wicked principle, after the things we see in the book of Revelation. We have to infer this somewhat because we are not given the details. Those details are come for further revelation. It's interesting to me because I was watching programs on people talking about the great extinction and cataclysm supposedly which happened, called the Lesser Dryas event. And what's interesting to me is like a lot of because, and we'll talk about the geology of the flood when we talk about the flood coming up. We'll talk about the physical aspects and the difficulties with that, because everything in geology has to be accounted for in the flood. If you're going to look at it like the earth was created a short time ago, then everything underground, that's all from the flood, and everything above ground has to be after the flood. I mean, it's only logical, right? So that has to be dealt with. But where was I saying that? Well, first of all, I'm gonna mark what verse we're beginning at. We're gonna be at 5. Well, anyways, the men of renown had someone had mentioned about Tubal-Cain and the idea of a school. There was something else, the geology. I'm saving that. There's plenty more to talk about here. I have more to say. What about the giants? Anything more to say about this before we conclude? I don't think so. Like I said, I think my idea is a synthesis of all that there is an angelic component, as there always is. Whenever people start manifesting sons of God type behaviors, I mean, like as if an angel from heaven came down to earth and was doing something contrary to God's will. Like that's the kind of human being we're dealing with. You know what I mean? Like you know what I'm saying? Like at some level, there's an overlap. People become so full of themselves, they become essentially like that's what they think they are. You see that among false ministers. You see that among lying politicians. They think they don't barely walk on the earth with the rest of us. And so this could be an ironic naming of them as the sons of God. But you will die because of the injustice you bring about on the earth, because of the wickedness you bring about on the earth, because of the destruction you bring about on the earth. You sons of God. You sons of God. You plot to save the world, but all you ever do is destroy it. All you ever do is take it and rape it for your own desires. That's what we have of sons of God from among the sons of men. The idea that they're, these are angels from God. These are angels from hell. You know what I mean? And that I think that in the story there is the truth. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I have to, I don't have a conclusion yet, but that's where my feelings are on this passage. The sons of God. There's something, you can't deny the connections, but there's also connections to men. All of you are Elohim. All of you are children of the Most High. Now, again, taking that in context, listen to my study on Psalm 82 if you don't understand the context of that, and that'll probably help. In John chapter, is it 8? No, John chapter 10 is another one where I talk about Psalm 82 and the idea of sons of God being men, because there's that aspect of the giants. And I did a little study on the giants too, didn't we? We talked about it because, like I said, it's definitely something, it's got a strong textual basis, but it's not without difficulty. So, we got the best view is going to have the least difficulties. That's why you're going to narrow it down. You're going to have an idea that fits everything, and it jives with the gospel and with what the Holy Spirit teaches. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for in my understanding. So thanks for joining me. We will be back again tomorrow to continue in Genesis 6. Until then, here we go.
Their damnation, this number is not. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be with death unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah